The gayest place on earth will surprise you how Islamic Sharia law changed male behavior. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. I'll be completely honest. I don't know what this is. By Ali Tabrizi? Tabrizi? I am so sorry if I mispronounced that. Or Tabrizi? Oh my god. Before I butcher it more, let's get into it. Before I butcher it more, let's go into it. I don't know what to expect. Also, please consider liking, subscribing. Let's look at the gayest place.
In Afghanistan, it was like Man Love Thursday. And I accidentally walked in a tent. I thought it was like the snack tent where we had like our Gatorade and chips and stuff. I walked into the wrong tent, and I seen about 20 plus dudes. Like, they weren't wrestling.
The gay like 20 dudes. They weren't wrestling. I'm curious. Okay, I'm curious. I'm very curious where this is going. I have no idea. The gayest place in the world starts getting thirsty. Gulp gulp. Why? I know why. And I'm not gonna say it. Afghanistan, the gayest place on earth. How years of Islam racing women has turned the nation gay. Yeah, we need to. That's crazy. No way that's real, right? There's no way that's real. Is this bait?
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all keeping well. In today's episode of What on Earth is Going On in the World, we're going to be taking a closer look at Afghanistan and asking the question of why it is that Afghanistan, an Islamic country, is so incredibly gay. It may be the
That is so funny. That is so funny. That is so funny. I can't. How Afghanistan, an Islamic country, is the gayest place on the world.
gayest country on earth. Now, I don't use that term.
The gayest country on earth. How would you, like, the context makes it so funny, because how on earth can you say is one of the most Islamic countries, yet it is the gayest country? Crazy.
In a derogative way or an insulting way. I've had gay friends my entire life. This is not kind of personal attack against homosexuality. That is not the
Yeah, that's also not the problem. It's just like hilarious because like you would think that these are oxymorons, right? Because like we hear of like them, for example, in some places, forcibly transitioning gay men into being women, and we hear how they are like killing people because they have a different sexuality, and like it's interesting, right? It sounds like an oxymoron. It sounds like something that wouldn't make much sense.
video. I use that term descriptively, prescriptively, to demonstrate why Afghanistan has a statistically sky-high rate of homosexual behavior that goes far beyond the kind of global average that you kind of see in most countries. So what on earth is going on there? In today's video, we're going to be diving into it. Now, there are a number of viral clips that you're about to watch, each one worse than the previous. And we're going to be hearing from a former US sniper who was deployed to Afghanistan in just a second. And then later on in the video, I'm going to explain the reason for this. Like, what's the cause? What's the ideological and political system that has incentivized all of this stuff? And I think the answer is going to surprise you. And then towards the very end, we're going to get into how Afghanistan can fix this problem of massive amounts of child abuse and pedophilia. So let's get into the video. Now, the first clip I want to play you is from this US sniper. This clip is going viral at the moment, so let's check it out.
In Afghanistan, it was like Man Love Thursday. And I accidentally walked in a tent. I thought it was like the snack tent where we had like our Gatorade and chips and stuff. I walked into the wrong tent, and I seen about 20 plus dudes. Like, they weren't wrestling.
I'm just going to pause it. So he's describing being
Well, that's the ultimate masculinity, guys. You need to realize, right? What's more masculine than a man sleeping with a woman? A man dominating a man. You know why? It's more masculine. Now it's just not one man, it's two men. Like, double men. Double the masculinity. Anyways, moving on.
On a US military base, and the friendly Afghan locals who are helping the US Army would have Man Love Thursdays. Now, this is everywhere in Afghanistan, and pretty much everyone that fought in Afghanistan will tell you stories like this. I read a whole other article where actually one of these US soldiers was murdered by one of these Afghan nationals for trying to report on this, and he would describe.
Crazy. That is crazy. Interesting. So it was like a so it's like they basically do try to hide the fact that homosexuality is that much of a big thing there. That's very interesting. But then again, but does a lack of women cause that? Or like not a lack of women, but like a lack of access to women cause that? I wonder. Doc dominate men, you beta. I prefer women. I prefer women. You know, they're nice. They're nicely shaped. I like the baby making part. It's good. It's good. It's good. Especially with a particular one. Moving on.
Described laying in his bed at night, hearing the screams of these Afghan boys and men being raped on US military bases, and how the US military would basically saying like, just, you can't talk about it. It's like their culture. We're not here for that. We're here to fight the Taliban.
Wait. So they forcibly bedtime sparring with other men. So they just like take the weaker men and just like, I'm gonna visit Uranus.
Taliban, and it was just like this whole drama.
And no, I'm not referring to the planet. I think so. A hole is a hole, and if they can't get women, then men would do. Yeah, they would just then take weaker men and, of course, boys. That's terrifying. I'm not entering any of these countries ever in my life. Sounds not fun.
And some of it was a bit of a cover up. So anyway, that's just a small part of this clip. I'm going to just show you another part now.
There was a mission out in Afghanistan. We're in a tree line, and stuff went down. We're plucking some dudes off. Pause. We're taking down some enemy. Coming.
Boy was like, wait, the way I said this sounds gay. Pause. Change. No, different wording. Okay, croc.
Out the tree line, butt naked. And in the tree line, we were pulling dudes. We had to pull guys out of each other. And they had makeshift condoms on.
What the fuck? Bro has seen man-made horrors beyond his own comprehension. Bro has seen shit. Bro's like, between explosions and gaming.
Of like saran wrap and a bow tie of like yarn at the base of it. And we had to pull some dudes apart out of each other.
Wow. So what he's describing there is that whilst he was in the field at war with the Taliban, that as the Taliban are receiving fire, like they're in between fights, I'm sure, they're in the field. The Taliban fighters were involved in gay orgiastic sex in the wilderness.
I think the mission failed. Well, that's one way to scare away attackers, I guess. Ain't no fucking way. That's crazy. That is wild. Why do they need them though? They won't get pregnant. I have no idea. I guess that like they don't have enough women there, so they just like, I guess STDs, but they definitely would get STDs, right? Like it has a higher rate practicing this, and diapers. They would need plenty of diapers.
Like as they're fighting. Wow. So again, this is just one soldier's story who happened to see this stuff. but this was common across the Afghan war. It's just, it wasn't really talked about because the US military didn't really want to, I don't know, get involved in this whole kind of cultural issue, which it deemed. And so, you know, a lot of these stories have since come out, but even still, many people are just unaware of just how much of this stuff goes down in Afghanistan, even on the front lines of war. Like the soldiers are just all doing it. Now, let's move on to another clip here. Now, there are a lot of documentaries about this issue. It's called Bachi, which means like child's play or boy play. And it's hard to choose which moment of the documentary to show, but I just thought this little moment was really interesting because it was caught on a hot mic from the film crew. So let's watch it.
A few days later, without realizing our camera was still running, Mestari and Dastiger began talking about what had happened to a young boy at another gathering with their friends.
Good God. Good God, you know, right? It's a muscle that stretches but then goes back to no. It's not. I saw a video of a black doctor saying this. The anus is not a sexual organ. Let me repeat that. Your butt, there's nothing supposed to go into your butt. And if you do it too often and too intensely and too extensively, it will not go back. Which means that you will become a diaperologist because you got to find the diaper that perfectly fits what you are going to let out. That's all I'm going to say. I think there's probably some gay couples out there that can probably confirm.
So again, this is just happened to be caught on camera, and these are just two dudes who the film crew are following, who are just bantering about this young boy that they just would just do anything they want to, like mass, like essentially gang rape of this young boy in the car. And again, I can't emphasize enough that this is happening everywhere across Afghanistan. This isn't just like a few places, a few bad apples. And I think after you watch this stuff, you'll start to understand what is happening in Europe is a complete perfect conclusion of what happens when you bring in people who have this kind of way of life or outlook.
Yeah, I am means kid, usually boy, and Auntie essentially here means trying your luck with them. Flirt. Yeah, I think I'm not. He isn't wrong, right? That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying importing these people has consequences, and those are the consequences. Yeah, I'm not surprised, right? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that this is happening here. The difference here is here they have actual access to women. That's the thing. Brother. Disgusting.
It's just, yes, you're going to see grooming gangs and rape and all this kind of stuff go sky high in places in Europe. So this is another part of the video.
Yeah, the UK. The UK, particularly Sweden, has issues. We have issues with that as well. I'm not surprised.
Every Friday, Dastiger goes to his local mosque to pray. Viewed by many as a pillar of the community, he owns a car dealership in Takar, along with a string of other businesses that have built his wealth.
No, what is this? Imam for 15 dancing boy for 4 years. Goodness gracious. Goodness, ugh. Stop! Stop! No! Never mind. Maybe my sons aren't safe. Maybe if once I have sons, they're not safe either. maybe they're not safe either. The boys aren't safe either. They don't discriminate. What the fuck? Bro, degeneracy. Absolute degeneracy. What the fuck? What do you mean you're gonna explode? Bro, he's seeing a dude dress up and he's ready to, a boy, and he's ready to just, where's the nut button? Yeah, fuck this, I'm getting up. What the fuck is wrong with these motherfuckers? Yeah, and this is the people that you allow to come here, by the way. This is the people flooding Europe, infiltrating Europe. I don't even think this might be an Afghanistan specific issue. What the fuck?
So I guess these guys just get together and have these kinds of private parties where these young boys are just dancing for the men. You'll notice there's no women. These are all boys. These are all dressed up men, kind of trying to look like girls, I guess, growing their hair out, putting stuff underneath their shirts to create breasts. And it's just, it's...
Is it gay if it looks feminine? Yes, by the way. If you are attracted to femboys, you are 100% a homosexual man. Which isn't a problem, but don't be delusional. If you like feminine men, you're gay.
I mean, just there's so many video clips from Afghanistan of this. Now, to answer the question of why it is that Afghanistan is like this, you have to understand that the Afghan government have done everything in their power to erase women from society. So first of all, fully covered. There are new laws where women aren't allowed to even speak in public. So they can't open their mouth and talk. They can't go to schools now.
So you're saying me that this is a result. You're trying to tell me that this is a result of women not being visible in public, which means they will take men and dress them up as women so they have something that looks like a woman. Diabolical. Female enough to get the pass. That only counts for you if you were a man.
I heard something the other day where I think women have to like cover up one of their eyes. So basically, instead of looking through the mesh of their headscarf through, two eyes, they have to cover one up because apparently 2 eyes is too many. And women aren't allowed to leave the house without a male relative, which creates a whole series of problems for families that don't have male relatives. Let's say you've just got a disabled parents or something, and you've only got daughters in the household. Young girls are having to dress up as boys to go out and get a job to provide for the family, kind of like the movie Mulan. Like it's full-on cross-dressing going on in Afghanistan. But it's not only that way around. As you can see, it's from boys trying to look like girls to appease the sexual fantasies of the men who don't get any normal sexual interactions with the opposite sex. And then you have girls having to dress up as boys to go and get stuff done in a society that doesn't let girls do anything or even leave the house. So that's a whole thing. You've also got the Taliban recently.
It just adds to the fact that I don't want them here. It just adds further to the fact that I don't want them here. And I don't want them near my woman. I don't want them near my children. Boys or girls, I don't want them near me. I just don't want these people to come here. I can, the more I see this, the more I get, the sturdier my belief gets that I don't want these people here.
Legalizing slavery, like the Taliban have just brought back slavery, and also under the new system, punishment for the same crime is no longer determined primarily by the nature or gravity of the offense, but by the social status of the person accused. So in other words, if you're an imam in a mosque and you've been accused of homosexuality, you're off the hook because you're a religious figure, or if you're a political leader, if you're a member of the police force, it doesn't really matter. So human rights, equality, just completely gone. That always happens under Sharia law. And I believe there was a story from a few years ago, because I wrote an article on this about a year ago on my Substack, where essentially what happened was the Taliban was able to overtake a police headquarters in Afghanistan by bringing in a bunch of these dancing boys to dazzle them. And so they brought them into the police office. The police officers were just dazzled by the prospect of being able to rape.
Wait. Stop. Wait. Are you telling me that... Hold up. Are you telling me they were so bricked up, these degenerates, right? They were so bricked up that they could just take over the police. Fuck, dude. Fuck. There's nothing else to say. It is time to wake up. I don't want these people here. And we can't get those people here. Jeez.
These young boys. And the Taliban were able to then distract them enough to poison them and murder them and then basically take over the police headquarters. So that tells you a lot about not only the Taliban, but also the police headquarters before the Taliban, where they were so dazzled at the prospect of being able to like fool around with these young boys that they basically didn't notice that they were being poisoned by the literal Taliban. And now one of these commanders in the Taliban who was also accused of doing this to young boys is now one of the chief people in the Afghan police force. So you just have the highest like people in office, the government, the warlords, all of these people that are creating these laws to like get.
What on earth am I seeing? What on earth am I seeing? What on earth am I seeing? Pedophiles are a race. Nope, but they certainly are a culture. What on earth am I seeing?
Get rid of women from society also happen to be engaged in all this kind of pederasty, pedophilic, homosexual activities. And this is just a hypothetical, okay? But if you were a tyrannical Islamist closet homosexual, what kind of society would you create? Just imagine that hypothetically for a second. If you're a tyrannical, psychopathic Islamist in the closet homosexual.
I'm not. That's why I don't understand why you would do this. What the I mean, but that doesn't make like how would you come to that conclusion, right? Because like the book, the Quran says no. But then they are here doing this, so all of them are hypocrites.
What kind of society would you create? I'm sure it'd look a lot like Afghanistan, which tells you a lot. And what's also interesting with Afghanistan is that technically you get the death sentence for being a homosexual. Within the Islamic world, generally, being gay is very, very, very illegal. But the way they get around it in Afghanistan is by saying that, well, being gay is between a man and a man, but here we do it between a man and a boy, and so therefore it's not gay. And so this is the kind of reasoning that's used to explain to themselves why what they're doing is not homosexual and not a sin. Now, this is not mainstream Islam, I'll give credit for that, but nevertheless, it's happening there in these.
Yeah, well, it isn't, but I'm probably assuming that Afghanistan isn't the only place that is doing it. Surrounding countries and regions may participate in the same behavior. Methinks. Was Iran or Iraq transitioning gay men into women? I am unsure which one it was. I think it was Iran. Yeah, it was Iran. So they do participate in similar behavior.
Very kind of tribal systems where the local religious leaders are also kind of in on it as well. And you have the wealthy people in the country who are the ones funding the mosques are also doing it as well. So you have a lot of like kind of corruption taking place there as well. And so because you're also getting rid of women from society, people aren't just having normal interactions with the opposite sex. There's no opportunity for flirting or getting into relationships. And what this does is it just sexually frustrates the male population. And I think that's a large reason for this. And then what ends up happening is it also incentivizes not only pedophilia, right, because it's a power game, but it also incentivizes inbreeding because there's no interaction with.
Yeah, well, cousins. Oh yeah, that's what the UK also deems fine. Cousin marriage, right? Remember that the UK is completely fine with this. Oh, but fictional step sibling settings, whether you find that fine or not, doesn't matter right now. But it's funny how like the fictional stuff gets like treated more harshly than actual cousin marriage. And we do have the stats, right? That the majority of birth defects are recorded are between Pakistani cousins. I don't see why PDF stuff would be on the rise. Well, it is sadly. Right? That's why these grooming gangs even exist, right? It is on the rise. The difference is here women are actually affected by it because they are right? And also like here they can see actual women, so if they come here, they will then do this to actual women instead, because they can. Because women out here are very visible, cousins and stuff. I see that. Okay, whatever. But the other thingy, I can tell you why, and that's because boys are more feminine than grown men. It's that simple. It's actually that simple. That's why it works. It's that simple. I won't go into detail, but it's that simple. They are more feminine. Obviously, the power game as well, right? But they're usually more. They haven't fully developed masculine features. That's why.
With women that you don't know, the only women you might be able to see without their headscarf, which like you can see them before you marry them, would be like a cousin. And so that is further incentivizing more inbreeding, which leads to all kinds of.
Holy heck. Damn, 60 to 65%. That's quite high. Okay, we got Pakistan with 60 to 65%. Kuwait with a max of 54%. Qatar with a 54%. United Arab Emirates with a 54%. Sudan was a 44 to 60 with a max up to 63%. Afghanistan with a 50%. Iraq with a 47%. Yemen with a 45%. Saudi Arabia with a 58%. That's a huge jump. Syria 40%. Bahrain 46%. Oman 40%. Jordan 32%. Palestinian territory, this is 32%. Lebanon 25%. Morocco 26%. That's surprising, honestly. Algeria 34%. Tunisia 32%. Libya 38%. And Mauritania, a whopping 47% as well. That is crazy work. I'm assuming that though most of these are between first and second grade cousins.
Health issues, but also just very tribal societies where trust is only within the family bloodline and not elsewhere. And so you just generally get these systems that don't work. I've done a whole video on this if you want to check it out. Now, the final clip I want to show you is actually from Pakistan. It's just over the border from Afghanistan, and the same thing is happening there, and it's tragic. So let's just watch this little clip here.
Well, I'm kind of not surprised, but
Oh, man. Just imagine a childhood like that. That's your formative years. Like all the adult men around you want to sleep with you, want to rape you, and give you a soft drink in return. And all of this is just completely unnecessary suffering. And it's been going on for decades. And it's not getting any better. And it's just all self-inflicted through this system and it's Islamic influence, right? And you got to realize that all of this is just completely unnecessary suffering that's been happening for a very, very long time. And now what's fascinating is that in the Greco-Roman world, it was exactly like modern day.
Yeah, right. Greeks had the similar issue with that as well, right? We do remember that. Interesting. So I googled it for India. It's 14% on the national level prevalence of cousin marriages, and more so in the south than it is in the north, due to probably religious and culture reasons. So there's that. They're still decently low, actually, surprisingly.
Afghanistan, where you had the ruling elites, right, like the Taliban today, or the police, or the warlords, engaging in pedophilia, or it was called pederasty. And you got to ask the question of why it is that the Greco-Roman world stopped, right? That banned it, made it illegal, created, moral stigmas about it, like redefined what it meant. And so what essentially was the cause of this was Christianity. So even as early as 50 AD, all right, so, Christ is on the cross at 33 AD. By 50 AD, the earliest written...
Well, yeah, and the Bible says that if you cause one of the little ones in general to stumble, it would be better for you to die. With little ones was meant children, and that would be to make them stumble, in a way. It's also that, right? There's a bunch of other verses as well. Yeah, makes sense. Mostly it's the southern states. When you go to the villages and stuff, yeah. The more isolated spaces, that does make sense.
Document we have from the early Christian world is called the Didache, or the Didache. And one of the earliest Christian kind of commandments is the kind of lessons, the catechism for new believers into the faith, explicitly lists pederasty or pedophilia as prohibited. You shall not commit pederasty, right? And even in the epistle of Barnabas in AD 70, you shall not be a corrupter of youth, nor like unto such. Justin the Martyr, which is in the mid-second century, basically criticizes Greco-Roman sexual norms, including prostitution and the exploitation of children. And you have church fathers like Clement and Origen and Chrysostom, or Origen and Chrysostom, all condemning this. And this is in like day one of Christianity. And what this did was it gradually changed the Greco-Roman world and the entire Western framework and legal systems that are still taken for granted for this until this day. So in other words, if you're not a religious person, or you're not a Christian, but you live in the West, or you live anywhere in the world, and you view pedophilia as abhorrent, as an abomination and evil, you have inherited those...
Yep, you have inherited Christian morals. You have inherited those. Surprisingly, a lot of people don't know, but the reason why we have the medical system the way it is today is also due to Christianity, but people take that for granted as well. It's very interesting. Don't say surprisingly in my poor heart. I am surprised because you have a decent large portion of Muslims in the country. So of course I am a little surprised. I thought it, honestly, I'm going to be real, I thought it was a little higher.
Those ideas from Christianity. It's not from the Greco-Roman world. It's not from the Islamic world. And yet we don't think about this. We don't think about the evolution of ideas of what got us here. Now, sure, you can find other examples in societies that may have viewed it, frowned upon it, and small little cliques here and there in the world. But as a world-changing force, it was Christianity that did this. And so my conviction is that if we want to help Afghanistan, if we want to help these children, if we want to help Pakistan and Mauritania and Libya, with all these slave trades happening now, you want to help Iran, you want to help Syria and Lebanon and Saudi Arabia and Djibouti and like all these Islamic countries. If you want to help boost human rights and equality and reduce child sexual abuse and all that other kind of stuff, we need more Christianity in those regions. If Afghanistan would open the gates for a flood of Christian missionaries and evangelists into the countries, you would see that country improve within a couple of years.
Yeah, but that wouldn't happen. That's just the that wouldn't happen. They would die. They would die. That wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen. You need good men that are inside the country right now. They need to do this in droves, right? It's not gonna be a single man, but it needs to be men inside the country. Have the exact same issues. And yet so many churches have CSA issues. It's in everything, kiddo. Obviously, right? Which surprisingly enough might be due to that reason that we have it here, honestly. It might actually be the reason as to why it is here. Right? No access to women. So that might actually be the reason. Here we have it in this case. It's also that, right? This gets also very much overblown. It isn't nearly as much as people want to make it out to be, especially when looking at this. But yeah, it's still everywhere there corruption is, and obviously the environment doesn't help. Yep. Obviously. It is everywhere. There's no doubt about it, right? It's in politics. It's everywhere, right? They're everywhere.
Years, because it would begin to address the root cause of the problem. Okay, and I'm not saying there aren't bad missionaries out there, because what happens is that pedophiles will seek work opportunities which expose them to vulnerable children. And that's why you see the infiltration of pedophiles into religious organizations.
Charity Standal. UN staff responsible for... Do you now understand why I don't like the UN? Do you now understand why I don't trust the UN? Do you now understand that when I hear the UN being involved in anything, my alarm clock starts going off? Red alert? I think it makes sense.
A lot of the time, or into human rights organizations, for example. The United Nations is rife with pedophilia. People think of the Catholic Church and they think, oh, there's so much pedophilia going on there. And it's a problem. And as far as I know, it's been mostly dealt with. But they were acting in contradiction to Christ's teachings. Those aren't Christian values. They're acting in opposition. And many pedophiles seek out jobs within the church because they know it gives them access to vulnerable kids. But the United Nations and other human rights organizations are far, far worse than what we've heard from the Catholics. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say is they're not all going to be great. But overall, the best thing you can do for Afghanistan is open the floodgates to like Christian evangelization. Because what it does is it changes the belief.
Well, the reason why the Taliban is back again, actually, is the United States' fault. Right? The country was not stable yet, and they pulled back everything. The military and all. That's the reason, right? The Taliban was gone, and now it's back, and guess who's at fault for that? Guess who's at fault for that? That's on the United States, no doubt about it, for Afghanistan, 100%. No doubt.
System. The people in the country right now doing this pedophilia stuff and everything else, stoning women and everything else, they're doing it because they believe it's okay. They believe it's good, and they don't have any other moral restraint that's telling them otherwise. It's because of what they believe. Foreign aid does not work. Sending trillions into Africa has done nothing to improve the place. It's just made warlords.
Well, of course it doesn't, right? So the reason why Africa as overall is cooked is because there's a lot of socialism. And people forget what the ruling system there is, and it's socialism. Particularly, there's a lot of communist-esque forms in combination with dictatorship, and that fucks over everything. Because if you send the money, the foreign aid to Africa, the money does not go to the people, the money does not go into the infrastructure, the money does not go into anything system relevant. The only place where that money is going to is to the warlords, to the dictators, to the people that have the power. It does not do anything. And China, which I'm not surprised, has actually realized this. Which is why they're actively investing into infrastructure. They're not sending foreign aid. They are literally creating jobs there. They are literally building internet access. They're building roads, right? Because they know they're gonna get something out of it, which is the resources that are in Africa. And there's tons of resources in Africa to be gained. Because, fun fact, people say like they're poor because of colonialism. That's, by the way, not even true. That's not even true. Because when colonialism happened, when the colonizing happened, they didn't even have machinery. So they only got the stuff that's at the surface. These countries are poor due to bad people running these countries. That's why they're poor.
Wealthier to oppress their people better. That's all that's happened. Military intervention also doesn't always work, because look at what Afghanistan has been like. The last 20 years of military presence from the US has basically just empowered the Taliban, because now they've left them all this US military equipment. What really changes a country is on the belief system level. And this is why the Soviet Union, the KGB, understood this, because they knew that they were militarily inferior to Europe, Western Europe, and the United States. They knew they couldn't defeat these.
Well, so that the Nazis, they knew that if they had a culture that was essentially believing in everything that they did, they had control. And here it's the same. The Taliban has managed to make everyone believe in what they do. Everyone follows this, and you get this. You get what's happening right now. And obviously, you get the flooding of Europe, which is very interesting. We get a lot of military-aged men, young military-aged men. It's not women fleeing, right? It's military-aged men.
Countries militaristically. So what they were trying to do was get into the belief system and the minds of people in the West. And so we're planting socialism and Marxism into the universities, these radical anti-Western ideas. So if you've heard ideas about anti-colonialism in the West and how bad British slavery was and how white people are always racist and all this kind of weird Marxist, socialist, intersectionality, kind of woke.
Yep, that is the truth. That is very true. That is very, very true. It's all just it's essentially just communism. That's what's happening. And I can tell because it's happening at my college as well. The difference is I'm not hauling for the psyop. There's that.
Politics that traces its origins in the Soviet Union, in the KGB. The Soviet Union understood this. Totalitarian regimes understand this. It's why every single totalitarian regime on earth, Islamic ones and communist ones, are scared of the Bible. Because what the Bible does is it creates a population of people who no longer fear the state. They no longer fear the death penalty. Their God, our God, Christ, was killed on the cross, was given the death penalty, and it's transformed into glory. It hasn't got the same meaning anymore for the Christians. And that's why Iran bans it, and like every Middle Eastern country pretty much bans it. You can't spread the gospels. It's like you can't convert from Islam.
To be fair, they ban every other religion. The Middle East would have been, if not for Islam, the Middle East would have been incredibly culturally and belief-wise diverse. It would have been an incredibly diverse place. You had many different beliefs, many different cultures, many different right? You can like look at how women dressed in all these cultures, and they were like incredibly beautiful, and the traditions were just the traditions were incredibly unique to the country that these people were in. And now it's like everything's the same, right? They have completely eradicated non-Islamic groups.
Islam to Christianity to North Korea, China apparently is editing the Bibles. There's a whole underground church movement because the churches in China are all like surveilled. This is probably a video for another time, but you need to understand that if you want to help a people, if you want to help Afghanistan, you need to address the belief system. And the track record is there that Christianity would do incredible things for Afghanistan. It's just a fact. Prove me wrong. Speak to me down below in the comment section and give this video a thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe.
Yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. That was very interesting. Individuality. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the word I was using looking for. Thank you. Yeah, it is very clear that people say it's culture, not religion. I'm saying the religion influences the culture and vice versa. That's why we are where we are now. And that's why basically Islam does not work, especially with democracies, right? The only functional democracy that you could call actually a democracy that is decently stable is Indonesia. And that's it. Turkey at one point was functional, but is now less functional than it ever has been. So that would have technically been number one, but yeah, it is incredibly difficult to deal with this. And the more people come into Europe, the worse it gets to stabilize it here, because eventually they're going to be enough where they can actually affect laws. And I don't think I want that. Actually, anyways, I found out that if I have sons, they're not safe either, so they don't discriminate. Equality. Yay, wonderful.